Share the screen. And we're up to that last paragraph, number 4. Is that not too, is that big enough for you, Linda?
I think I can. No, I can't make it bigger. Yeah, that should be okay. I'll just schmooze right in here.
I'll make it bigger on the next page, but this is kind of just trying to fit it all, paragraph 4 on one page.
No problem.
So, who shall read this one? Shall I
I'll
start?
go ahead.
Oh, you go.
The healer who relies on his own readiness is endangering his understanding. You're perfectly safe as long as you are completely unconcerned about your readiness, but maintain a consistent trust in mind. If your miracle working inclinations are not functioning properly, it is always because fear has intruded on your right-mindedness and has turned it upside down. All forms of not right-mindedness are the results of refusal to accept the atonement for yourself. If you do not accept it, you are in a position to recognize that those who need healing are simply those who have not realized that right-mindedness is healing.
Oof.
V, do you have the definition of atonement available in hand?
Yes. But that's a really interesting paragraph to be reading after our conversations offline, hey?
Yeah, really.
Atonement, reconciliation with God, or reconciliation or remembering who we are.
Beautiful. I'll tell you guys a little miracle that happened for me. And V, you're going to find this very strange and very odd because you know how many lectures I've given throughout my life, right?
Yep.
Hundreds and hundreds of them. So I'm going to do this talk and I'm super nervous and I don't even know why. And then I start going, okay, why am I so nervous? Energetically, why am I like, wake up in the middle of the night with my stomach in knots? Like, what is that? I've done thousands of lectures. And I realized, first of all, I had spirit attachment, so I cleared myself from that. Then I realized I had certain little tiny traumas around presenting from a long time ago, like in the 3rd grade. I cleaned up all that. And then I thought, okay, well, that's not necessarily it. And then I thought, oh, I know what it is. You have fear because you're making it about yourself. You're making it about like, you have to make this impact. It's going to be, the amount of students you're going to acquire from this group or the amount of coaching clients you're going to get. And if it's not good, it's that. And I went into some form of scarcity. And I thought, oh, so that's what the fear is about. And so I literally really surrendered it over to God. And I felt this weight it was like something lifted physically off of my body. And I went in there and probably did one of the very best talks I've ever given. Robert, I came back to the table we were at, and Robert was like, oh my God, that was the most incredible thing I have ever heard come out of your mouth. Women were coming up to me going, there's one woman came up and she couldn't even speak. She was so emotional. She just said, I don't know what that was, but I can't even talk right now. And she just burst out crying and had to go sit down. She couldn't talk to me the whole time. But it is really, really, really important that we get into the right-mindedness and that is where we stay. Because if we do, everything comes good. And if we don't, we have fear. And we're impotent in the fear. Do we need to break this down further, gang?
the look on V's face, that was precious. Looked like you were going to start doing the blowfish thing.
It's just so true about waiting to be ready, because you're never going to be ready. You just need to trust and jump in. Hey?
Very true.
Trust is a big thing.
Yeah, I've learned that recently myself, to just stop fearing that I need more, that I need this, that I need that, and just go do it. And that's essentially why I announced what I announced to y'all earlier. It was just one of those on a call with my one coach, and it was one of those, well, why don't you? And it was like, why don't I? I looked at the account, I'm like, I can, let's do this. And he's reading this again, it just flashes me back to all these times where instead of thinking I needed to go do more to be ready, I just went and did it. And like Gary, just amazing things happened.
That's what you do, Joe. You let the force work through you, buddy.
Exactly.
I know I've come up with situations where I haven't thought of it as fearful, but I've been making excuses and procrastinating. But now, with all we're doing with this, I realize that those excuses and the procrastinating are also fear.
Yeah. They are.
Mm.
And it really is when you think that it is in your control, and and then you start thinking of consequences and comparisons and all of that. And before you know it, you have yourself all wound up in a tizzy and you can't function. So it's super important to remember the atonement for yourself and right-mindedness and healing. So Linda, as you face all the things you're facing with your gearbox, the gearbox comes in the perfect timing.
Yeah.
You will always literally, as long as you're looking through the eyes of the Holy Spirit into your world and seeing just oneness, and you go out there and there's all the boys out there slapping their asses and cursing and talking about the last moment they plowed, you can just look through the eyes of the Holy Spirit. You know? I mean, that's God incarnate in all of its diverse forms.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sweet.
Love it.
Yeah, these Aussie boys can get pretty gnarly, I gotta say.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And that's all I have to say about that.
I remember when my good friend Sue Putt was dating an Australian, I said, darling, don't date an Australian. Their form of foreplay is like, hey, baby, awake? Don't date an Australian. She laughed. It was fun.
Anyway, shall we move on to
Very
the next
inappropriate what I just said, I must say. Especially during a Course in Miracles meeting.
Oh dear. All right, I'll make this one a bit
That's
bigger
enough.
now so we can read these next two.
Remembering though too that right-mindedness is about laughter
Oh,
in
it is
whatever,
absolutely
in whatever
not
form
laughter.
that is.
Okay.
It's the most precious thing in life,
Yes.
to find joy and fun and everything.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. Paragraph 5 is ready for who wants to read that. And there we go.
I'll do that.
Alrighty.
The sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for himself. This means you recognize that mind is the only creative level and that its errors are healed by the atonement. Once you accept this, your mind can only heal. By denying your mind any destructive potential and reinstating its purely constructive powers, you place yourself in a position to undo the level confusion of others. The message you then give to them is the truth that their minds are similarly constructive and their miscreations cannot hurt them. By affirming this, you release the mind from over-evaluating its own learning device and restore the mind to its true position as the learner.
The mind's position is the learner. I love that.
Yeah.
That brings a kind of humbleness and humility to what we do. Remember that.
You know, this is so beautiful from the perspective. I mean, I'm pretty I'm doing the daily lessons, and the lesson for today was none of my thoughts mean anything. And I love that particular lesson. I've come across it before, and other times I've gone through the daily lessons, and it is really, really powerful to think that when you think to yourself, none of my thoughts mean anything, then the only thing you're really left with is the thought of God and you and the atonement and your oneness, because literally none of your thoughts mean anything, because all you're doing is seeing separation and division. It's quite relaxing, actually. This one line, I think, is really special. It goes, by denying your mind any destructive potential and reinstating its purely constructive powers, you place yourself in a position to undo the level of confusion of others. Does anyone have any comments on that sentence?
Well, I kind of think that's what you were doing on the weekend.
It was.
Empowering people, yeah.
It was absolutely that.
Well, working
Yeah.
with another coach, she gave me a little practice to do whenever my thoughts are getting out of hand, we'll say. And it's simple. Ask yourself an impossible question. And she gave me one. I don't remember what hers was, because the one that came to my mind was, how can you breathe without air? And that, in a sense, causes like a conflict within the brain to stop thinking the thoughts you were thinking and focus on that impossible question for a moment to take you out of that space. And it's funny because I was just doing it this morning. Thoughts were running wild, and I'm like, why am I thinking these thoughts? And I was like, oh yeah, I need to ask that impossible question. And as soon as I did, I was fine. You know, how can you breathe without air?
There's some other questions that you can use as well. One is, you know, are these thoughts true? And can I really know that they're true? Who am I without these thoughts? And what would I prefer to be thinking to bring me into miracle mindedness? So it's about 3 to 4 questions that you can ask that breaks that chain as well.
That's definitely helpful to get out of that destructive mindset.
I also learned something else. I'm a freak for Viking movies. Don't ask me why, but I'll be on Netflix, and if I see a Viking movie, I'm like, oh my God, I've got to watch it. So I was watching, like following adamantly The Last Kingdom, which is
That's
phenomenal.
great. That's
Phenomenal. Oh, I
Hmm.
know. Phenomenal series on the Vikings. I must have lived in that period of time. But it was so violent. I mean, graphically violent, that I found myself, you know, I would sit in meditation, I'd be just hanging out during the day, and I'd have all these, you know, images coming into my mind, or thinking all these thoughts that were quite the opposite of who I am. I'm thinking, what the heck are these intrusions of internal representations? And I'm thinking, oh, I'm installing it because I'm so in love with this series, but the series is super violent, and I think I'm not being affected by it, but I actually am. And I had to stop watching it because I didn't want those internal representations literally installed inside of me. So the big lesson I got out of that was, be very careful on what you expose yourself to and allow yourself to bring in through your 5 senses. No matter how subtle and benign it is, if it's shocking to your nervous system, it's going to have an impact on you.
That's why I don't watch the news.
I know. That's why I can never watch a Viking program again. Unless they were all zinned out Vikings, you know.
Wonder if there's a clearing you could do for afterwards
I don't know, but I'm sure
to
missing my
not
Viking.
take all that on.
Yeah, I haven't figured that one out yet.
They weren't all about violence though.
No,
But maybe
there's
there's something that doesn't have all the violence in
that would be lovely. I'll be on the surface with that.
I think if you're talking about Vikings, though, there's always going to be the violence.
it. Not
Yeah.
necessarily. I was reading something on the history of them, and a lot of the supposed raping was actually that the women would rather have babies with the Vikings than the men of their own tribes.
Wonder why.
Yeah, because they were actually quite vain, and they would bleach their hair blonde. They had like the kind of the herbal stuff that they could actually bleach their hair blonde, and they were very carefully groomed and whatever.
There you have it. Vanity even in the Viking period.
Yes. Anyway, we digress.
Yes, back to the course. Well, this is really powerful when it says, by denying your mind any destructive potential and reinstating its purely constructive powers, you place yourself in a position to undo the level of confusion of others, which I found really interesting from the perspective that you do it for you. It's this resonant field that issues out from you and influences and affects other people. Then it says the message, it doesn't say you're speaking the message, but the message you then give to them is the truth that their minds are similarly constructive and their miscreations cannot hurt them. It's almost like you have to become the change that you want to see other people become, which I think is really beautiful. I don't think I've seen it said this clearly before.
It's something that I think I've only been exposed to initially from you, Gary, in your courses, was that, you would see people, you would see the light in other people and help them ignite that. And it's still something that I work on because it's so easy to criticize people or judge them based on some action that's kind of got in my way. So it's a constant coming back to seeing the light in others. So that you can help them. Well, you're helping yourself, and you can't help others unless you're helping yourself.
Well, remember that meditation I give out to people saying, a crystalline light comes in, exits the heart, goes into the heart of another until you can just see their soul and love their soul, regardless of the personality. That is the atonement. Like that process brings in the atonement, because you're not seeing the personality, you're not seeing what they do or don't do, you're just seeing the light of God in them. And I think that's what the atonement is. Do you guys think the same or not?
I'd agree with you.
Because that's what I think it is.
Maybe that's what you should call your little exercise then, your meditation.
The atonement.
Yeah.
Might help us remember the definition a little better.
It might.
Actually, yeah.
Okay. Well, I just did 2 atonements today.
Love it. Wow, that's a good
The last line of this, I think, is super powerful too, by saying, by affirming this, which is affirming that our separated mind cannot really hurt us. By affirming this, you release the mind from over-evaluating its own learning device and restore the mind to its true position as the learner. Can we get number 6 up on a full page?
Yeah. I think I make it smaller. Oh, no, that's small. It's doing that a bit now.
What if you change the page width?
Let's see what that did. Now it's on one page, yeah.
Sweet.
Right. Who's going to read number 6?
I can jump in.
All right.
Go for it, Joe.
It should be emphasized again that the body does not learn any more than it creates. As a learning device, it merely follows the learner. But if it is falsely endowed with self-initiative, it becomes a serious obstruction to the very learning it should facilitate. Only the mind is capable of illumination. Spirit is already illuminated, and the body in itself is too dense. The mind, however, can bring its illumination to the body by recognizing that it is not the learner and is therefore unamenable to learn. The body is, however, easily brought into alignment with the mind that has learned to look beyond it towards the light.
What are you trying to tell us?
Well, it comes back to, I think, what I think it's come through a few times about the body is just a messenger for whatever our mind is actually focusing on. And it's falsely endowed with self-initiative. It becomes a serious obstruction for the very learning it should facilitate.
Remember, V, when I would always say in trainings, the body is a biocomputer for the subconscious mind. It's very much that the body is a reflection of the repetitive thoughts, therefore the repetitive emotional states, and then the body gets imprinted by those emotional states.
And I used to deny that a bit, and in some ways I still do, and that's why the body still has a message for me. So the monkey mind or the thought process, the thought pattern that's carrying on can be so deep and so unconscious that it's really hard to shift it.
Yeah.
To become aware of it.
You have to sort of stay aware of what your mind is actually dwelling upon and thinking. And it's oftentimes quite an opportunity for patients because it flits from one thing to another to another.
I used to say I had a million thoughts a millisecond.
I love this one line where it says, only the mind is capable of illumination. Spirit is already illuminated, and the body in itself is too dense.
I'm a bit confused by the next sentence. The mind, however, can bring its illumination to the body by recognizing that it is not the learner. So what is not the learner? The body?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. No, I don't know what unamenable means.
I can find out.
One moment, please.
Hey, Sarah.
I got it.
What does unanimable mean?
Found this on the web.
Oh. Are foxes getting bolder? And if so, why? That's not it. Hey, Siri. Did you find it?
Linda? Linda, did you find it?
Is there
I'm
something
just bringing it up now. Open and responsive to suggestion, easily persuaded or controlled.
Okay, that makes sense.
Capable of being acted upon in a particular way, susceptible.
Is that amenable or unamenable?
That is, what is that one? Oh, that's
Unanimable.
I've got, sorry. So I guess it's just the opposite of that.
Yeah, that makes sense then.
Not responsive to something, not capable of being treated or dealt with in a particular way. And then there's another one that says the meaning of unamenable is not amenable. Hello.
Very helpful. Oh dear.
The
So is
last
that
line is
kind of-
very cool.
Is
Go
that
ahead,
kind of
Tom.
like saying the body won't do unless the mind tells it to, type of thing?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that last sentence pretty much says it, doesn't it? The body is, however, easily brought into alignment with a mind that has learned to look beyond it toward the light.
Yeah.
It's funny how when we break down the sentences previously, that last sentence seems to end up being the overall impact of what that paragraph is actually saying.
It has a tendency each paragraph to do that. Like the last sentence in the paragraph kind of tries to sum it all up.
Yeah.
That's
I've only
generally
just
what they're
noticed that.
supposed to do.
What was
But,
that, B?
yeah, well, when I was learning high school, learning to write things, it's supposed to be like the opening of the opening of your paragraph is the introduction and the closing is the summary. And it's the same thing when you're writing an essay or anything else, that's what has to happen for it to make any sense. I actually quite like how
Cool.
we start talking about the sentence and then we're reading the next one. It's like, oh, well, yeah, we've just discussed that. That's how organic it seems to be.
Yeah.
Really.
V, you want to do the next one or do you want me to?
I can do that one, and I'm just going to see how much is left of that one. So because I can control the screen, I'll just keep it here and read on.
Okay.
Corrective learning always begins with the awakening of spirit and the turning away from the belief in physical sight. This often entails fear because you are afraid of what your spiritual sight will show you. I said before that the Holy Spirit cannot see error and is capable only of looking beyond it to the defense of atonement. There is no doubt that this may produce discomfort, yet the discomfort is not the final outcome of the perception. When the Holy Spirit is permitted to look upon the defilement of the altar, he also looks immediately toward the atonement. Nothing he perceives can induce fear. Everything that results from spiritual awareness is merely channelized toward correction. Discomfort is aroused only to bring the need for correction into awareness. Discomfort. It's like getting out of the comfort zone, isn't it?
Yep.
Discomfort.
V, would you mind reading that again?
Yeah. Corrective learning always begins with the awakening of spirit and the turning away from the belief in physical sight. Shall I just read the whole thing again without stopping and
I'm
then come
thinking, yeah, that's
Sorry?
what I would like. If someone wants
Yeah,
it, if someone wants to go through it line by line, we could do that as well.
Yeah, okay, we'll read it once again through. I'll start again, actually. Corrective learning always begins with the awakening of spirit and the turning away from the belief in physical sight. This often entails fear because you are afraid of what your spiritual sight will show you. I said before that the Holy Spirit cannot see error and is capable only of looking beyond it to the defense of atonement. There is no doubt that this may produce discomfort, yet the discomfort is not the final outcome of the perception. When the Holy Spirit is permitted to look upon the defilement of the altar, he also looks immediately towards the atonement. Nothing he perceives can induce fear. Everything that results from spiritual awareness is merely channelized toward correction. Discomfort is aroused only to bring the need for correction into awareness.
Hmm.
I'm kind of picturing someone I know who has who's quite superstitious and believes in witches and bad things and you know just the dark things that like in fairy tales or whatever. And for me, reading this enforces that well, there is no such thing, and we're just making all this stuff up to distract us from the spiritual journey.
And induce fear.
Yeah, and induce fear, and it's actually holding people back rather than lighting them up.
But that's what in my mind, and one reason why I've dropped out of society is because society does that. Society controls by inducing fear. It's the only way to get people to listen, because people seem to enjoy the fear side of it. Somebody else makes a decision. If I'm in fear, somebody else has got to make the decision. And that's how I see society.
Is that why the M in masses is silent?
Probably. Squeaky, it's the minority that always ends up getting heard, isn't it? Squeaky wheel, all that sort of. And I like to think that I'm in the minority because I actually want to do something to help myself, which in turn helps other people.
That's all we can do, is help ourselves and let that echo out into our proximity and help those grow within themselves as well and keep that momentum flowing.
Well, live in love and laughter. That's the key thing, isn't it?
Mhm.
Rather than always being afraid.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been learning a lot lately that running headfirst into those fears is an amazing thing. Like, the greater the fear, the greater the reward for going through it. And it's scary as hell, sure, but damn, is it amazing when you come through some of these things.
This needs to be looked at like an adventure.
Hmm.
We're going on an adventure. It's a scary one, but we're going to do it anyway.
Well, it really gives you the experience once you go through whatever you feel quite fearful about to the other side of it, that it always was and forever will be an illusion, that whatever you're afraid of on the other side of it, it's nothing. It's actually a big nothing burger on the other side. So it's so important to stretch yourself and do things you've never done before. And then your capacity increases.
I read
I'm
something
reminded of people. Sorry, Joe.
Good. Good.
Oh, I'm reminded of people who tell me I'm brave when I do things like move to Man Up, and it's like, it doesn't feel brave to me. It's like, this is what I need to do for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of makes you think how people hold themselves back from doing what they really need to do, and then that's where illness comes from as well, because of the fear of like, oh, I really want to do this, but
Mm.
and the body's saying, well, you should. That's what you're supposed to be doing. So here's a message for you.
And I've had the same thing too with, selling everything and buying the van. People said to me how brave I am, and it's like, well, I don't feel brave. It's the unknown. There is a bit of fear around it because, hello. But I think sometimes people will think about a certain thing and say that's what they want to do. They'd really love to do that, but they're not going to do it. So they're seeing it as being brave that somebody that they know is actually doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of falls into what I was going to say. I read something somewhere, I don't know where, but it was something along the lines of fear is diminished through knowledge or something like that, to where basically obtaining knowledge is going to take away that fear. When you come across something scary, and you learn about it, you realize, oh, that ain't shit. Like, why was I so scared? Why did I spend so many years running from that when I could have been over it in 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Who wants to read next?
You read, Gary.
Okay.
Your turn again.
Yeah. So we're on number 9, correct?
8,
Eight.
number 8.
The fear of healing arises in the end from an unwillingness to accept unequivocally that healing is necessary. What the physical eye sees is not corrective, nor can error be corrected by any device that can be seen physically. As long as you believe in what your physical sight tells you, your attempts at correction will be misdirected. The real vision is obscured because you cannot endure to see your own defiled or altar. But since the altar has been defiled, your state becomes doubly dangerous unless it is perceived. Very convoluted.
I kept going in and out and in and out and in and out. I was hearing it and then I wasn't hearing it. I'm going to go through and read it again.
Go ahead and read it out loud, Linda, because it's a really good paragraph.
Read it out loud.
Yeah, go ahead.
The fear of healing arises in the end from an unwillingness to accept unequivocally that healing is necessary. What the physical eye sees is not corrective, nor can error be corrected by any device that can be seen physically. As long as you believe in what your physical sight tells you, your attempts at correction will be misdirected. The real vision is obscured because you cannot endure to see your own defiled altar. Ooh. But since the altar has been defiled, your state becomes doubly dangerous unless it is perceived. Crikey. Very dark, isn't it?
Well, I think what it's actually saying is that if we're looking through our physical eyes into the physical universe, and we're not seeing it through the eyes of the atonement or the eyes of the Holy Spirit or the eyes of the miracle maker, then what we're seeing is simply the physical, which is always a separation. So it says here, as long as you believe in what your physical sight tells you, your attempts at correction will be misdirected, which means if I'm seeing the separation, I'm not seeing the unification. So my attempts at correction by unifying will be misdirected. I love this part where it says the real vision is obscured because you cannot endure to see your own defiled altar. I think that's what they're calling the altar is our bodies.
Yep. That's how I took it.
Yeah. But since the altar's been defiled because we're seeing our body as separate, your state becomes doubly dangerous unless it is perceived. In other words, unless I can perceive it differently.
Think about all those people stuck in addiction, stuck in self-hate. They can't even look at themselves in a mirror. And that's kind of where my mind went, hearing that sentence read. It's, I was there at one point in life myself, and that's why I love the mirror work. When you can look in the mirror and speak positive into something that you thought so negatively towards for so long, it does amazing things.
Yeah.
I think about how unspiritual I used to be, and people are quite. And Tim, Gary, you remember Tim? He said towards the end of our relationship, "Have you always been the spiritual?" It's like, no, not at all. And it was never something that I sought out, but because I was always happy to try, not always, but I tried new things quite often. And my body was sending me a message of pain, so I went to see different people about that. And at the same time, I think I came across you. So I was doing the kind of the work in my mind and emotionally, just trying to work through all that stuff. But and I found this amazing Pilates instructor, and I think they kind of aligned my body with what was happening with my mind, and it allowed an opening that couldn't have happened without both of them. What's my point here is just that Yeah, our body is definitely a messenger, and to listen to that and not be afraid to try new things to see what comes out. Who knows what's going to come out?
Mm.
Don't limit yourself to just, and here's the goal setting as well. Don't limit yourself to what you think the goal is, because could blossom into something even more beautiful than what you initially had planned.
Mm. Yep.
Joey, you want to give it a go on number 9?
Healing is an ability that developed after the separation, before which it was necessary, or excuse me, before which it was unnecessary. Like all aspects of belief in space and time is temporary. However, as long as time persists, healing is needed as a means of protection. This is because healing rests on charity, and charity is a way of perceiving the perfection of another, even if you cannot perceive it in yourself. Most of the loftier concepts of which you are capable now are time dependent. Charity is really a weaker reflection of how much more powerful love encompassment that is far beyond any form of charity you can conceive as of yet. Charity is essential to right-mindedness in the limited sense in which it can now be attained.
You're reading from the book, thank goodness, so you could keep it going.
I thought Gary set it up like that.
Good on you. I'm just going to try and get that under one page though, because it's oh goodness me, now we've got really big. Let's see if
Wow.
it's going to be on one page now. No, it's still not on page. Sorry.
If you widen the page width, you'll get it all on there, and you might be able to leave it big. as
Sometimes
well.
I need to shorten it. It's just really difficult. It's going to have to stay like that. I don't think it goes much wider without turning double.
There we go. Are we almost there?
All right, that looks like yes, it's on page. Awesome.
That first line gets me though. Healing is an ability that developed after the separation, before which it was unnecessary.
I think
So
that's
is
very
that-
powerful.
Is that falling away from the atonement, from source, however you want to view that?
Yeah, I mean, from the original separation, there was no need for healing because we were not separated.
Love that.
Space and time are temporary. Why do we take it
Yeah.
all so seriously?
Program
We're
beliefs.
forced into it. If we could just sit and meditate all day, every day, and do nothing else, then we wouldn't have the belief in space and time. It wouldn't be necessary.
That would just be a state of consciousness.
Mm.
But then we get bored.
Nah.
Hey.
And then we come and do this all over again, hey?
I know.
I'm not coming back. No,
It'd take-
I'm not coming
It'd
back.
take a few generations. It would definitely take a few generations for us to get bored again. It'd take a good 3-4 generations, I think.
I know for one thing, when I get done with this lifetime, I need to rest for another 10. Somewhere in some astral heaven.
So as long as time persists, healing is needed as a means of protection. So as long as we keep on believing in time, we're going to need healing. Is that a
I think-
protection from ourselves?
I don't think it's a matter of just believing. Well, it does say belief, but I think it's reaching another spiritual level where time and space don't matter so much, I guess. And maybe they matter less if you can actually tap into practicing miracles all day with whoever you come across. I think we need the interaction with other people to actually create those miracles.
Well, it says in the next line, this is because healing rests on charity, and charity is a way of perceiving the perfection of another, even if you cannot perceive it in yourself. So it really is about us practicing seeing that oneness by seeing the perfection in another when we have too much self-judgment to see it in ourselves.
So in a sense, that was like what people were saying to Linda, calling her brave and all that, because they were unable to see it in themselves or something.
Yep.
I think people get stuck though, don't they? Like they, with their family or in the everyday things, you wake up, you have breakfast, you get dressed, you go to work. You come home, you cook dinner, you go to bed, you wake up the next morning, so rinse, repeat. So I think when people talk about the bravery of others, in my humble opinion, is that that brave person is actually out doing something that they don't feel that they can do. They don't have the time, they've got family commitments, they've got all sorts of other things going on. So instead of just saying, you know what, let's just do it, they see somebody else doing it and think that that's a brave thing to do, but it's not. It's just that whole mindset. We're just going to do it. Make the decision, do it.
So it's almost like people need permission to do something different, to get out of that program cycle of wake up, go to work, come home, hang out with the kids, watch TV, go to bed, wake up, go to work, and rinse and repeat.
That's what they're told that they have to do. You know, my sister constantly says to me, why don't you get a proper job? Well, I don't want a proper job, thank you very much. I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing. And you know, you need to do what is right for you at the time. And it'll change over time.
Mm-hmm. One of the 4 agreements is to always do your best. And that looks different every day.
For different people.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And to me, going to a job, just a down and out job every day, is not serving anybody. It's not serving yourself. It's not serving anybody around you. It's just not. So,
Serving the boss.
Pardon?
It's serving the boss. He's
It's
happy
serving the boss,
making those millions.
So, but with the things that we do where we do serve other people, that's the fulfillment. For me, that's the fulfillment, not going into an office every day.
I haven't seen the word charity come up before, so that's interesting.
Oh, it's a new word.
Yeah.
But it kind of defines it here. It says charity is really a weaker reflection of a much more powerful love encompassment that is far beyond any form of charity you can conceive of as yet.
But it's a step.
Definitely a step.
I actually put a quote in the Studying A Course in Miracles Facebook page the other day. When someone else's happiness is your happiness, that is love.
Say that again, B.
When someone else's happiness is your happiness, that is love.
Like that.
Cute.
Just kind of thought of that with charity.
Well, we're almost at the top of the hour, gang. I think we should end at number 9.
Yes. That flew by.
Let's give our words.
I think V just gave hers. That was beautiful.
Was
Okay, that'll be mine. Who's next?
I
like
will-
that first one. Go ahead, Gary.
I was just going to say charity is the first step to right-mindedness.
Yes.
I like that first line in number 9. Healing is an ability that developed after the separation, before which it was unnecessary.
It's a beautiful line.
Something to aim for.
And I'll steal a sentence out of here, like all aspects of the belief in space and time, it is temporary.
There's only consciousness.
Beautiful.
Well, Gabe, I am going to say adieu and thank you all very much for coming. I got about, I don't know, 4 hours sleep last night, so I'm fading fast.
Oh,
Yeah, we came back from Denver and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning by the time we landed in bed.
Mm. Oh, you've only just got back. Gosh.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Right. Well, have a good
okay,
sleep.
guys,
tonight.
we'll
Have some
see you
hot
next
chocolate.
Tuesday. Oh yeah, that'll put me right out. See you guys later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
everyone.
Have a
Have
great week.
evening.